Rashida.
We are from Budi International High School, Indonesia. In this moment, we are going to present our research entitled
The Effects and Role of Vegetation on Sandun's Deformation in Yogyakarta, Parangtritis, Indonesia. First, let us begin with the introduction. Generally, sandun is a typical landform that is formed upon the beach, and you may have heard several types of it. It plays an important role to act as a natural barrier to reduce the impact of tidal waves and make the residential area low risk from a tsunami. In this research, sanduns in Parangtritis, Yogyakarta, Indonesia was identified. Let us tell you the special things about Parangtritis sanduns. First, it is one of two Bergengsi types of sanduns in the world. The shape is shown in the figure. Second, it's rarely formed in a humid tropical climate instead of usual arid climates that sanduns form. Third, it is formed by black sand from Mount Merapi volcanic material. As you can see, the figure depicts the location and landscape formation of Parangtritis sanduns. Began from the north, there is Mount Merapi that the eruptive activity generated pyroclastic flows into the Opak River. Then, the river current makes the green sand carried to the estuary that meet with the ocean current, which then make up the natural sand and carried away by the wave and wind to settle on the beach. The process continues to a Merapi sediment, which then develops into a Parangtritis sandun.
Moving on to the next slide, I'd like to tell you the purpose of this research. The problem in our research topic was the plantation program, which was caused by the low level of biodiversity in the dry sand dunes area. Thus, the purpose of the research was to identify the effect and roles of vegetation on the Parangtritis sandun. Let's continue to the next part, which is the method. This research was conducted using primary and secondary method. The primary method of this research used sandun landscape data from Google Earth to compare vegetation spread area over the years using digitation calculation. In this research, the interview was done with 5 respondents who were the representative of local communities, environment activist leader, sandun deep community member, and Parangtritis Geomaritime Science Park. The observation was done with random sampling to identify the zoning policy of Parangtritis sandun. This research is also supported using secondary method, which was done by processing data from Google Earth to compare primary zone area throughout the years. The rainfall and vegetation were analyzed by reviewing data from the previous studies.
Now we have come to the next part, which is findings and discussion. This research identified the deformation of Parangtritis sanduns that gets an effect and roles from the spread of vegetation using comparison with map data per 5 years. In the 1980s, a forestry was held in the coastal areas, and after that, the vegetation grew on the sanduns. Focusing on the primary zones, it can be seen from the figure that the area of the sanduns has been decreasing slowly from 1985, 1990 to 1995. But for the last 10 years, from 2010, 2015 to 2020, the sanduns area was progressively decreased. This proves that vegetation has affected the Parangtritis sanduns deformation. Let us tell you specifically about the sanduns deformation before and after the plantation program. In the figure 1978, it can be seen that the sandun is still forming its shape of bar chart. There is no existence of vegetation growth which influenced horticultural farming, and just few buildings in the area. In the figure 2010, it shows that there is an ongoing forestry in the coastal area, and according to the interview, it was the last time margin shape can be seen. Lastly, in the figure 2015, there is a new vegetation law. The rapid growth of vegetation blocks the wind, and this is the beginning of the stereotype that the sanduns can be used as horticultural farming.
Next, we have 2 tables. The table 1 shows the important value of 10 vegetation. The important value shows that the existence of the species has a vital role to the sanduns deformation. It shows that 80% of vegetation on Parangtritis sanduns that play a bigger role is non-native vegetation. The table 2 shows the rainfall data from 1980 to 2009. It shows that rainfall is relatively the same every year on both rainy month and dry month. This is the picture of 4 vegetation that has the biggest impact on the sand dunes with the top 4 highest important value based on the previous table. There are 2 native vegetation and 2 non-native vegetation. As you can see in the figure, for the native vegetation there are Fimbris tilissimosa and Pandanus tectoris. The non-native vegetation show Gliricidia sepium and Casuarina equisetifolia. These 4 vegetation can be found relatively easy on Parangtritis sand dunes.
Next, we'd like to move on to the next point, which is about the activist movement. In the beginning of 2015, the existence of sand dune is influenced by economic activity such as tourism, building, agriculture, and shrimp farming, thus creating a community of activists called Save Our Sand Dunes Life, or known as SOSDL. SOSDL action made the media begin to expose Parangtritis sand dunes that increase tourism activities and damage the sand dune itself. Moving on, the increased damage to the sand dune caused the Parangtritis Geomaritime Science Park Consortium to take a firm action and creating a zoning policy that divided the sand dune area into 3 zones, namely primary zone, supporting zone, and restricted zone, as you can see on the figure. Firstly, the primary zone. This is where the wind actively transports the sand to form a volcan shape. In this area, local vegetation can grow as a biodiversity due to block wind to form volcan. Secondly, the restricted zone. In this zone, all anthropogenic activity must be cleared to keep sufficient sand from the marine deposition located in the floor of sand dune area. The presence of vegetation in several areas in the zone is also needed to reduce the impact of erosion and high tide. Thirdly, the supporting zone. Vegetation that grows in this area serves as a barrier and protection to prevent the movement of sands to residential areas outside the primary zone. Besides that, anthropogenic activities are allowed, namely tourism area and settlements to support the economic activities. Finally, we'd like to conclude this research that the effect of growth of vegetation over the years has blocked the wind corridor that disrupt sand dune function, and the vegetation's role can be maximized with sustainable management of zoning policy. We therefore strongly recommend that restoration is needed for the volcan type to be reformed back. In the short term, tourism activities should be relocated not in the primary zone, and economic activity can be placed by utilizing other zones. And in the long term, the design plan from the PGSP of building beach walk in the sand dune as an access for tourism activity can be actualized.
We now reach the end of our presentation.
Thank you for your attention.
Stay healthy, stay safe,
And have a great day!